Hi everyone, I'm Christy, and today we're going to be covering the elements of good videography. There's a lot of components to making a good video, and it can be kind of overwhelming if you're just handed a camera and you don't know where to begin. So I'm going to walk us through three main elements that I would like us to focus on in order to really sharpen up and make for some good footage. So the first thing would actually be to have good composition and framing. And so what do I mean by framing and composition? So there are three types of common ways that we frame a video. So the first is using the rule of thirds, and you're basically just going to divide your composition into thirds. And you're going to place your subject on any one of these intersection points of the thirds. And so this is an example of what it looks like when you're using the rule of thirds. And so why do we use the rule of thirds? It's actually because it's a lot more appealing to look at an image when it's placed on the rule of thirds. And opposite to this, there is a second point, which is using the rule of symmetry. And so there's something really dramatic and really beautiful about placing things in the center. So right now I'm centered, and so it also makes it seem a lot more focused. So the only thing that you're looking at is me. So you generally want to use this kind of framing if you want to focus on the person, or if there's some sort of dramatic lead-in to whatever you're looking at. And then the third that I want to talk about is actually having enough head space and leading space around you. So head space just really refers to that you don't cut off the top of the person's head unless you're doing a close-up shot. In which case you kind of have to in order to get a better view of the person's eyes. But you also want to make sure that there is enough, we call it breathing room, around your subject, so it doesn't feel like you're boxing them in or making them feel too uncomfortable. You want to give as much context as possible when you're filming, because the context helps to give a better visual narrative to your character. So the second element of good videography is using camera movement. And so there are a myriad of different kinds of movements that you can have the camera do. And obviously, if you have different equipment, you can also have different techniques. But I'm just going to go over some of the most basic camera movements that you can do with your phone or your camera without any other equipment. The first one is to have a static shot. So right now, this is what I would consider a static shot. The camera is on a tripod, it's not moving anywhere. And I can move in and out of the frame if I'd like, but the camera is staying still. And so this is a great route if you're focusing on a conversation, or you're doing a documentary style interview like we're doing right now. There's really no need for the camera to move. The second is using a pan. So a pan moves the camera from left to right, and this is usually so that the audience can focus on one subject, either that's moving or focusing on one subject and relating it to the next subject. This can also be used for tilt. Tilt is often from up to down or down to up. And tilting is mainly used if you want to create this idea of something, looking at something up higher, or making something appear bigger than it actually is, or maybe even smaller. So you want to make sure that whatever camera movement you're using, it is to visually describe what you're looking at and to create that kind of impact for the viewer to see. Another one that you can use is zoom. I don't use this quite too often, but that can also be used to get closer to an object if you want them to focus on it or read it, or to zoom out. So zooming in or zooming out on a subject or an object is a way to place emphasis on it if that's what you're trying to go for. You want to be careful with zoom because of the focus, so it can also be kind of jarring to look at. So you want to make sure when you zoom, you're zooming to exactly where you want to look at. You're not just kind of zooming into a random spot. Another one that I use a lot is tracking. So tracking is basically just when you're following a subject. You're following them as they walk around. Let's say they're doing an action. Let's say they're making coffee. You would follow them as they're doing these actions, and it's a lot more fluid. But you want to try to make this movement as smooth as possible, unless you're making a horror movie. In that case, the mood and the feeling is very different. So having good, clean camera movement will help you to really showcase what you're trying to show people visually. And so that's really the goal of videography, is to, instead of showing things with words or with explaining things, you're visually showing them and not just telling them. And so there's a lot more camera movements that you can look up online if you'd like, but these are some basics that I think would be great for you guys to start with. So the third element of good videography that I'd like to talk about is types of shots. And so the best way to explain this is to just show you what kind of shots I'm talking about. So right now we're using a medium close-up shot. Different shots will portray different moods for your character. So you want to pick a shot that's going to illustrate exactly what kind of mood and tone you're trying to go for. So if you're going for a really intense or dramatic shot, a lot of people like to focus close up. So we would call a face shot, or ones for the eyes, just the eyes is an extreme close up, and then for the face it would be a close up. And then the further you get is a medium shot, and then a medium wider shot, and then a wide shot is used for establishing things, and then there's also extreme wide. So yeah, play around with these different types of elements of videography and see kind of which ones you gravitate towards. Different filmmakers and cinematographers will use different styles. Like Wes Anderson, he uses a lot of center framing, he uses a lot of trucking or panning or really quick movements. And so every kind of filmmaker has a different style that they like to work in, just like any other artist. So I hope that this has helped you to learn more about what are some good elements of videography that you can practice and really make your own, so that you can create your own style when it comes to filming your own videos.